So when Bill Mitchell compares coronavirus, which with all of the effort of the United States has been so far in the earliest stages held to 1,000 people, he's comparing a full national effort in the very beginning of a problem to a mature problem that's a different problem that happened some other time. That's not a good comparison. All right? It's just not a good comparison. And if you try to draw a conclusion from that comparison, that therefore it's all political, you are really damaging the country, in my opinion. Because the country needs to know that this isn't like the other ones. Because knowing that is what causes you to modify your behavior. If you don't modify your behavior, this is going to be like Italy. So I use the example of Italy and Iran because their hospitals are already overrun. Here's the main thing you need to know. That if we can slow it down enough, it won't overwhelm our systems. And that we're not exactly trying to save lives compared to other flus or other problems. I mean, we're doing that too. You would, of course, try to save lives, but that's not the strategy. Saving lives is just sort of what you do. You always try to save lives. But the strategy is to spread out the impact. So we're trying to, do our social distancing and hand washing and closing events and stuff. That's not supposed to stop it. We don't have a problem we can stop. We do have a problem that with great confidence, we know we can flatten out the problem. And if we flatten it out and spread it out enough, then the hospitals will not be overrun, the businesses could potentially stay open, and we can get through it with some predictable amount of pain. So it's all about the flattening of it. I've come to a conclusion that President Trump's tool set is best used against people. In other words, if you say, hey, Donald Trump, President Trump, I've got a person that you need to defeat, or you need to negotiate with them, or you need to win them over. And then the president says, a person. I know how to deal with people. And then he goes and he does it very well. The president is really, really, really good at getting a result with people. But I don't know that he's exactly the right person to have a battle with a virus. Because you can't really insult a virus. You can't beat a virus with, getting more attention on TV. You can't reframe a virus. Pretty much the president's entire tool set is people-oriented. So he's struggling on this. If we're being honest, I wouldn't expect you to believe anything I say good about the president if I can't also say, well, in this area is not ideal. And I don't think he's nailing it on the coronavirus. But as I've said, I don't think it'll make any difference because it's a weird kind of crisis in which the president's involvement is the least important part. If you think about it, the president always has to be the one in charge and takes the blame and gets the credit. But how much is the president actually doing? Really, the only thing the president is doing is he assigned the right people, he's done. He closed the airports early, pretty good. There's no question about that. Closing the airports early, good move by the president. But once he's got Pence on board, I'm sure he gets briefed a lot, but mostly his job is just talking to the public. And this isn't his best topic. I was saying yesterday that whoever canceled, I was saying yesterday that the big rallies should be canceled. Now, apparently the president doesn't have any scheduled. So the president didn't have anything to cancel. He was just obviously smart enough not to schedule anything. Whereas Bernie had to actually cancel something, and then I think Biden followed on and canceled some other thing. And I thought to myself, oh man, the president missed this too. He's so good at picking up free money. I say this all the time. If the president walks by a table and there's some money laying there, and he looks around and it doesn't seem to belong to anybody, he's usually the smartest one, and he says, does anybody have this money? Does this belong to anybody? No? Nobody? Well, I guess I'll pick up this free money. And he does it in lots of different situations. And he had free money sitting on the table for this situation of canceling big events, because whoever went first looks like the leader. And whoever goes second looks like a follower. So the free money is, if you know you're going to cancel your events anyway, you might as well announce it. Go first and be a leader. It forces everybody else to be a Me Too player who doesn't get as much attention, and when they do, it's for being a follower. So the president should have very early said, I'm canceling all my events, even if he didn't have any scheduled. He should have just said, I'm not going to have any more rallies, I'll go first. It would have immediately forced Sanders and Biden to do the same, but it was going to happen anyway. Didn't everybody know that the rallies were eventually going to get canceled? If it's going to happen anyway, take the free money. Go first. Again, the president missed this opportunity, I think. President Trump keeps being asked whether he's going to be tested for the virus because he shook hands at CPAC or something. And his answer is just the worst answer. I mean, he's just not performing at his usual level for this crisis. And Trump answers that he feels fine. And I just cringed. I was like, oh, that's not why you get tested. You don't get tested just because you're not feeling fine. You get tested because you're the commander-in-chief and you've been exposed, and it's just a test. Do you think somebody in the country could maybe give up a test so the president could get tested? I think that would be a worthy trade-off. We do put resources into protecting our leader, greater than the resources we put into protecting any individual, and most of us think that's a good idea, because the leader influences all of us. So here's what the president should say, instead of that terrible, terrible answer that he feels good. Oh my God, that's just so bad. Here's what he should say. He should say, I delegate that decision to my doctor, the White House physician. If he wants me to get tested, I will, but I'm not the expert, so I'm not a doctor. I'm going to let the expert tell me when to be tested. He hasn't told me to do that. Now, if he said that, wouldn't you feel a little bit more comfortable? But when he comes out and says, I'm not getting tested and I feel great, that makes you feel like he doesn't understand the problem, because there are a lot of people without symptoms. And that's really the biggest part of the problem. If the only people who could spread it were people who showed symptoms, we'd be in good shape, because we'd just say, symptoms. Stay away from that one. So, I don't know. I don't think the president could have done much worse in answering that question, but he should just defer to his physician next time. Let's see, what else is going on? I feel as if people don't quite understand this strategy for dealing with the coronavirus. And here's the main thing you need to know. That if we can slow it down enough, it won't overwhelm our systems. And that we're not exactly trying to save lives compared to other flus or other problems. I mean, we're doing that too. You would, of course, try to save lives, but that's not the strategy. Saving lives is just sort of what you do. You always try to save lives. But the strategy is to spread out the impact. So we're trying to do our social distancing and hand washing and closing events and stuff. That's not supposed to stop it. We don't have a problem we can stop. We do have a problem that with great confidence, we know we can flatten out the problem. And if we flatten it out and spread it out enough, then the hospitals will not be overrun, the businesses could potentially stay open, and we can get through it with some predictable amount of pain. So it's all about the flattening of it. And I didn't want to do what I'm going to do now, but I feel like it's a public service, so I'm going to do it. I've been watching Bill Mitchell tweeting all week, various different ways. He's saying some form of that the panic is overdone on this virus, and that really the panic is indicative of a political process, not scientific or medical. So here's one of his tweets today. So this is Bill Mitchell. He says, H1N1, I guess was that the swine flu? Its fancy name. In 2009 infected 61 million Americans. 61 freaking million. COVID-19, he goes on, has infected 1,000. COVID-19 has received 10,000 times the media coverage that H1N1 received. And then Bill Mitchell concludes, he says, yes, folks, it's all political. Now, I ignored the first few times he did this because I like him. I've been on his show and stuff. But at this point, it's sort of a public service that I stop this right now. Don't you agree? Because the problem here, and I think most of you can tell, is that he's comparing an apple to an orange during an emergency. And if you compare an apple to an orange during an emergency, what are the odds you're going to make the right decisions? None, right? It's just a faulty comparison. And the reason that you can't compare this coronavirus to any prior flu is that the experts have told you unambiguously it doesn't act like those other ones. So those other ones were plenty scary, and it was with great effort that we got them under control. But the experts, Bill Mitchell, do not say this one is like those other ones, except in name. They're viruses, I guess. But otherwise, the curve and what it does to you is different. For example, the other ones affected children. This one affects children far less. This one is far more deadly to old people, and maybe more viral as well. Well, I think some of the differences are, like if you're looking at Ebola, for example, people died pretty quickly, so they couldn't spread it. So these are just completely different problems. So when Bill Mitchell compares coronavirus, which with all of the effort of the United States has been so far in the earliest stages held to 1,000 people, he's comparing a full national effort in the very beginning of a problem to a mature problem that's a different problem that happened some other time. That's not a good comparison. All right? It's just not a good comparison. And if you try to draw a conclusion from that comparison, that therefore it's all political, you are really damaging the country, in my opinion. Because the country needs to know that this isn't like the other ones. Because knowing that is what causes you to modify your behavior. If you don't modify your behavior, this is going to be like Italy. So I use the example of Italy and Iran because their hospitals are already overrun. So we've got some social media reports from doctors in Italian hospitals to say that they're already, canceling optional surgeries. And if it continues to get worse, they're going to be canceling mandatory surgeries because they only have so much resources and they're filled up. So we don't have to wonder if this virus has the potential to overwhelm our healthcare system, because we can watch it. We watch it happen in other countries who are not doing as good a job. Now, the fact that we're doing a better job than, say, maybe Italy was in the United States might have to do with the fact that we got an earlier start. Maybe they got infected before they knew as much as we did. There are a lot of differences. They have older people. Maybe there's more smoking. There could be lots of things that are different. But when you're watching that, the one thing you do know is that it can kill enough people to overwhelm your medical resources. That's not in question anymore. We don't have to question whether this virus, if we let it, would kill more people than our healthcare system can handle. We don't have to wonder. That's an answered question, because Italy has already demonstrated that. And I think Iran too, but we have less information. So, Bill Mitchell, please stop comparing this to any other flu, Because while we don't want to panic, we do want people to know that if they don't modify their behavior, this one is not going to be as kind as the other ones. That's a known fact. All right, and I don't really see this politically being I just don't see it a political thing. Somebody says every flu you hear the same thing. So apparently there's somebody who's still not convinced that this flu is different. Let me just take it down to one element for you to check. If you think this flu is not as scary as the media is telling you, then you'd have to explain why Italy is having so much trouble. Now, sure, I get it. That Italy has fewer hospital beds, and they don't have the facilities of a South Korea or even maybe China. I don't know, or the United States. But Italy did not have their healthcare system crash with prior flus, so you have to explain why it did. If you can't explain that, you have to stop saying it's the same as prior flus. If you can explain it, please tell the rest of us, because nobody else can explain it except that the flu has a nastier nature for extra old people. All right. Just an update on me, because it ties into this COVID stuff. I've got some medical procedures upcoming, and I'm really concerned because I don't want to be into a situation where I've got a surgery scheduled and I don't know if our healthcare system is still working. But today I'm going to go get my head examined, literally with an MRI, to see if my sinuses can be operated on. And I don't know about scheduling the surgery now. It seems like a dicey time to even have something scheduled. I suppose if I get through the surgery and I get my pain meds, I'll be okay, because I just have to recover. But it's just a terrible time to have some unrelated medical problem that you need the healthcare system to deal with, because you just don't know if it'll be there in a month. Somebody says have them test for TDS while I'm there. Looking in my head, that's a good idea. We'll see if there's any in there. They'll have it removed. Yeah, somebody says, is it possible for you to wait, or is it be better to get on with it? I'll make that decision pretty soon, but it's going to be close. The last thing I want to do is walk into a medical facility, because at some point there's going to be a crossover where going to the medical facility to get something fixed that was dangerous, so you got to get it fixed. It might be more dangerous than staying away from. It might be more dangerous to go to a healthcare facility and be exposed to God knows what. Because it isn't yet. I mean, at the moment, I wouldn't worry about it. But we're getting close. A month from now, do you think you would go to a hospital for a regular problem? Maybe not. Maybe not. All right. People will have cabin fever after this. Yeah, I'm starting to get a little squirrely myself, because I keep forgetting that I'm not supposed to leave the house. And I find that I'm keeping score. I don't know if you're doing that yet, but I'm keeping score of how many social contacts I have. So if in a normal world I would have 10 social contacts, I'm trying to cut that down to 2 or 3. Because I don't have to eliminate my social contact. I just have to get it down to a number where the coronavirus can't spread as quickly as it would. So here's my count. I've shaken one hand in total since the coronavirus started, or 2, maybe 2. I'm going to go to 0. Both of those cases were I wasn't thinking, but in other cases where people have offered to shake hands, I've refused. And even walking down the sidewalk, I took a walk yesterday, and somebody was just walking on the sidewalk in the other direction, and we did this like really wide passing. So I would think I've got my social contacts down. If I had to guess, I think I've reduced my social interactions by 80%, the personal ones. Somebody says their FedEx guy has coronavirus. Well, that's not good. Somebody says there's going to be a baby boom in 9 months. Maybe. All right. All the bleach was gone at the market. Well, my supermarket, my stores have everything except cleaning supplies. So all of the Clorox wipes and stuff, they all disappear pretty quickly. But plenty of food. I don't think we're going to run out of food.